October 26, 2025, Caribbean Sea, 1445 local time. The log will later call it a training loss. The ocean will call it nothing at all. But in the thin band of air between gray water and low cloud, a signal changed shape, and a helicopter ceased to exist. The day began with routine. USS Nimitz held steady into a long, slow wind, deck crew moving like clockwork beneath the white breath of jet exhaust. 60 nautical miles to the west, a surface contact formed and reformed on composite feeds. Merchant silhouettes, fishing clusters, the nocturnal geometry of AIS beacons. The map looked harmless. Maps often do. The MH-60R Seahawk from HSM-73, call sign Battlecat 2-1, lifted at 1407 for a sector sweep. Its job was simple: hug the low layer, interrogate tracks, paint the sea with a disciplined radar hand, and come home. The crew knew the drill. Sonobuoy racks were clean. Data links blinked good. The cabin smelled of hydraulic fluid and coffee. Above the weather, an invisible lattice flickered to life. A relay of satellites and high-altitude relays fed the carrier strike group a moving dome of awareness. Infrared whispers, SAR frames, ELINT threads braided into a single picture. The picture said normal. The picture lied. At 1432, an anomaly threaded the net. A brief, precise spike. Not in the Seahawk's band, but to its skin. The crew chief saw it first on the threat receiver. A thin green line snapped to a hard tone. "We are being painted." The pilot eased right to break the angle, kept the horizon level, watched the instruments begin to tremble as if something far away had put a hand on the helicopter's chest. On a bearing neither charted nor claimed, a low hull rode the swell with a patience that did not belong to fishermen. Her radar mast wore new shapes. Heat bloom around a canister bank marked out a system that doctrine listed in other theaters. Not here. Nothing fired. Not yet. The sea remained calm. The lie held. In the Combat Direction Center aboard Nimitz, the timeline narrowed. Tracks cross-checked. Emissions cross-referenced. The air intercept controller spoke in a voice devoid of weather. Cat 2-1, be advised. Unknown emitter 32 degrees, range 22 nautical. The Seahawk crew acknowledged. They had seen the tone go steady. They had heard the cockpit become small. At 1444:13, the emitter changed again, from curiosity to intent. The tone became a nail. The pilot put the helicopter into a defensive weave not meant for machines with rotors, dumping altitude to force sea clutter into any hostile seeker. In the rear cabin, the operator thumbed out chaff and flare, thin coins of light spinning into the salt air. The horizon did not blink. The first launch did. It was not a sound so much as a subtraction, a wedge cut from the surrounding quiet. A small body leapt from a near-invisible rail and became a straight line drawn with brutal handwriting. High supersonic in the terminal, but subsonic now. Climbing to find its eye, the missile arced into a search profile. No one on the helicopter saw it. The sensors did. Machines speak to machines quickly. The Seahawk's pilot kept the nose flat and the blades honest. He did not have seconds to spend. He had a handful of heartbeats to trade for distance. The countermeasures pulsed. The threat receiver chattered between modes: search, track, lock. A metronome of escalation. The second launch stitched itself into the sky behind the first. Whoever sat over that canister bank believed in redundancy. On Nimitz, the watch stood closer to their screens. The tactical action officer began to construct the legal picture, while the tactical one collapsed. Where exactly did airspace stop being public? Where did water stop being open? What line, printed in ink, could stop a missile written in fire? Questions for policy, answers for physics. At 1444:51, the missile found its letter. Sea clutter and decoys gave it a ghost to chase. The ghost bled sideways. The pilot threw the helicopter into the kind of turn that wrings noise out of transmission gears. The seeker corrected once, twice, then stopped correcting at all. The world became very narrow, the width of a rotor disc, the length of a fuselage, the time between an inbound and an impact. No one heard the missile arrive. The recording cut to static mid-syllable. The acoustic buoy still drifting below the last flight path caught a single metallic groan, and then the hurried applause of water. Fragments fell like black rain. Foam erased the coordinates with a careful hand. 15 seconds later, the anomaly vanished from the lattice. The dome of awareness closed over an absence and pretended it was air. The watch logged loss of link. The message drafted itself. During routine operations, an MH-60R was lost at sea, cause under investigation. The sentence carried no verbs that bled. From orbit, the truth did not look like a sentence. It looked like a hot needle poked into cool fabric. Then another. then a cooler smear of debris sinking along a ragged track. Infrared frames told a short story. A platform with new teeth, a profile out of place, a plume that should not have been here. The analyst drew a rectangle around the canister bank and wrote a question mark in disciplined penmanship. The question mark was not for him. It was for people who could move ships. At 15:01, the first corrective motion began. Below deck, ready crews stood beside jets that had been ready before sunrise. Fuel bowsers trundled. Safety pins clinked into hands and came back empty. The deck boss pointed without shouting. The sea slapped the hull as if to remind steel it was floating. Far to the west, the quiet hull turned its bow half a point and made no haste. Radios that had been loud went quiet. Channels that had been quiet went loud. Someone aboard that hull believed distance was a kind of armor. Someone else believed silence was. The official narrative hardened by the hour. Training, separate incidents, cause unknown. The words were carefully chosen, the commas neat. But beneath the words, the timeline refused to relax. At 14:32, a paint. At 14:44:13, a launch. At 14:44:51, a disappearance. A chain with 3 links. Chains hold weight. Evening bled into the Caribbean Sea with its usual lack of ceremony. The carrier's wake drew a white seam through slate water. Somewhere under that seam, air trapped in aluminum crept toward the surface in strings of silver beads. They popped without sound in the dying light. There would be statements. There would be condolences. There would be a board convened to measure angles and fatigue and weather. There would be words for families that did not include the word missile. And yet, at the edge of a low-resolution frame, a canister lid still hung open like a mouth deciding whether to speak again. The day did not end with sirens. It ended with paperwork and the soft thud of rubber stamps. It ended with a lesson that did not fit on a line. In a sky crowded by eyes and laws, the first shot can still pretend to be gravity. The ocean keeps secrets well. Machines keep them better. The loss of contact with Battlecat 2-1 was still marked as pending verification when the flight deck of USS Nimitz turned from routine to ritual. There is a choreography that follows uncertainty, a language of motion older than any order. The lights shifted to amber. The deck crew drew their invisible circles. Somewhere deep below, a phone rang only once before being answered. 2 FA-18E Super Hornets were armed and fueled long before the words Combat Air Patrol appeared on any log. Their tasking was limited, almost ceremonial. Locate debris, confirm status, maintain visual integrity of the carrier group. But inside the Combat Direction Center, another word had already appeared. Hostile emissions. It lived in a report that would never reach the public and carried a single line of annotation. Pattern consistent with engagement radar from Venezuelan origin platform. At 16:11, Catapult 2 roared alive. The first Hornet, Razor 1-1, climbed into an indigo sky scattered with the detritus of an approaching storm front. Behind it, Razor 1-2 held formation, the pilots silent except for procedural calls. Routine words, spoken in non-routine air. From their altitude, the Caribbean Sea looked like an oil painting, calm, dense, deceitful. 100 kilometers to the west, something moved against that stillness. A ship's wake, too sharp for a fishing trawler, too wide for a patrol craft. The aircraft's AESA radar caught it, lost it, caught it again. The contact returned a faint pulse in the L-band, an old Soviet signature wearing a new name. The Hornet stayed at 20,000 feet, offsetting the vector by 10 miles. They were not hunting, they were watching. Until the electronic warfare officer aboard Nimitz spoke into the circuit, voice cut clean of emotion. Razor flight, emitter spike, type Buk derivative. Bearing 270, range 42 nautical. Advise caution. The sky changed its temperature. The pilots didn't see the launch. Few ever do. They felt it through the instruments. The RWR tone shifting from idle to alarm, from search to lock. The kind of sound that doesn't rise, it arrives. Razor 1-1 broke left, hard and disciplined. The pilot deployed chaff, a silver snowfall in the blue. Razor 1-2 climbed, using vertical escape to break radar geometry. The missile had already been airborne for 11 seconds, its guidance radar tethered to a distant operator watching a green scope hum with certainty. On board Nimitz, the tracking cell worked in seconds and syllables. Inbound, Mach 2, descending. The tactical action officer called for SM-6 readiness, but the geometry betrayed them. The missile's path threaded through a thin strip of atmosphere just outside the ship's engagement window. The fleet's umbrella could see the knife, but not catch its blade. Razor 11's pilot saw the smoke column first, a thin arc in peripheral vision, closing the distance faster than calculation allowed. He inverted, dove, and fired flares, irrelevant against radar guidance, but instinct is older than logic. The missile corrected once, then twice, then all corrections ceased. A small sun blossomed in his mirrors. At 16:13:22, Razor 11 ceased transmission. Razor 12 pulled high G to avoid the expanding debris cloud. The canopy flashed orange, then black, then clear again. The pilot steadied, oxygen rasping in his mask. 11 down, missile origin confirmed, possible ship launched. The words entered the net, recorded by systems designed to forget nothing. He was ordered to withdraw, but withdrawal implies safety, and there was none. The Venezuelan emitter flared again. A second radar spike, broader this time, sweeping the sky like a blind searchlight. The Hornet's onboard ALQ-214 jammer reacted automatically, pouring noise into the ether. The cockpit flickered. Symbols froze and rebooted. For 3 full seconds, his world became an aquarium of static. Then the tone vanished. The lock had been broken, not by grace, but by physics and luck. He dove into cloud, leveled at 5,000 feet, and aimed east for the returning beacon of Nimitz. No one followed. No one needed to. From orbit, the event looked like punctuation. 2 brief bursts of heat on a dark ocean. 1 intact craft returning to formation. 1 descending in fragments. The Venezuelan frigate, now identified through spectral imaging as ARV Guácharo, altered course and radioed silence. Its flag fluttered as if nothing had changed, but everything had. In the carrier's combat direction center, the sequence replayed in real time and in disbelief. The command structure demanded proof. The instruments offered mathematics. Debris coordinates aligned with a known radar pulse. Spectrum analysis confirmed a seeker frequency associated with export-grade 9M317M interceptors, Buk M2E lineage, but adapted for maritime launch. The fingerprints were unmistakable. The officer of the deck asked the only human question left. Was it intentional? No one answered. The room smelled of cold electronics and jet fuel. Intent is not measurable by radar. At 1640, Nimitz launched a recovery search. Drones, P-8 Poseidon aircraft, rescue assets, all under the mask of operational loss. The public would hear nothing for days. The official line would hold, training incident, cause unknown, separate from prior event. But inside encrypted channels, the vocabulary changed. Engagement, rules of response, countermeasure authorization. By sunset, the carrier group adjusted its perimeter. The E-2D Hawkeye expanded its orbits. FA-18G Growlers went active in suppression posture. The calm facade of deterrence returned, but below it, something irreversible had shifted. The crew no longer spoke of exercise airspace. They spoke of contested waters, and deep within the ship's data archive, the algorithm that managed threat libraries quietly created a new entry. It labeled it simply Guácharo Variant, confirmed hostile emitter. The name would circulate through briefing rooms in Pearl Harbor and Norfolk, whispered with the same cold respect given to unknown predators. The night came fast, thick with humidity and silence. Radar screens softened into blue haze. The sea returned to stillness. But on every watch station aboard Nimitz, men and women stared into displays that no longer showed just waves and sky. They saw a ghost of the missing, a question mark written in fire over water. The dogfight had lasted less than 2 minutes. It was not a battle. It was a message. And messages, once sent, cannot be unsent. The ocean was black glass. The Nimitz strike group drifted on a curtain of radar silence, its electronic emissions trimmed to near zero. No navigation lights, no open circuits, no chatter. Just the hiss of the sea against metal and the low heartbeat of turbines buried deep below. Somewhere within that silence, an admiral stared at a screen that no longer blinked. The official report was already written. 2 separate incidents during routine operations. But the data disagreed. The satellite loops showed converging vectors, synchronized within 1 minute. The telemetry packets that should have ended in static ended instead in bright, definitive flares. Someone, somewhere, had fired with intent. At 0304, the first stage of the response began. Not with missiles, with mathematics. From a secure room buried in Hawaii, the 10th Fleet Cyber Unit initiated Operation Silent Current, an invisible strike designed to peel open the networks that guided Venezuelan radar systems. Code signatures crawled through relay satellites and oceanic fiber, slipping between packets disguised as weather data. No one would see it, not even those who wrote it. Its goal was simple: blind the aggressor without ever being seen. Meanwhile, in orbit, KH-11 optical satellites pivoted their lenses west. At 0320, they captured infrared evidence: a Venezuelan frigate drifting toward friendly waters, its deck covered by tarps where missile tubes had been visible a day before. Analysts marked each tarp with red crosshairs. The word concealment appeared on the intelligence summary. By sunrise, Washington had received the brief. The language was cautious: possible engagement, limited scope, plausible deniability. No orders for retaliation, no statements to the press. The silence itself was strategy, a message meant for those who understood that power speaks loudest when it refuses to shout. At 0745, civilian networks began to ripple. A Venezuelan defense blog posted grainy footage showing an explosion over the horizon. Caption: "Unknown aircraft violates airspace, neutralized by national defense." The video spread before it was deleted. 17 minutes later, a U.S. Navy spokesperson issued a short release. "We are aware of reports concerning an incident involving U.S. Navy assets in international waters. Recovery operations are ongoing." No names, no blame, just gravity and words. Behind the statements, the investigation deepened. The debris fields of both the Seahawk and Super Hornet were mapped by autonomous underwater drones. Each found the same signature: metallic shards fused with traces of composite residue, typical of proximity-fused detonation. The pattern was clean, too clean. The analysts didn't see chaos, they saw precision. By noon, the Nimitz task force altered course eastward, leaving behind the invisible scar of 2 points marked only by buoys. Overhead, E-2D Hawkeyes expanded their range, scanning for emissions that never came. The Venezuelan vessel was gone, its transponder deactivated, its last known bearing north by northwest. The silence felt heavier than noise, and yet, silence has its own language. In Washington, back-channel communications began. A line of encrypted dialogue flickered between embassies in Caracas, Moscow, and Beijing. No nation admitted involvement. No one denied it either. The message was simple: the line has been tested. It held. That night, in a secure hangar in Guam, the next phase unfolded. A single RQ-180 stealth reconnaissance drone took off under satellite control, flying black and silent above the cloud line, toward the same coordinates where the sea had burned hours earlier. Its cameras scanned wavelengths human eyes could not perceive. It captured what the ocean had already tried to bury: fragments of a radar array stamped with Cyrillic numerals, half-torn serials from a launcher module. Proof enough for those who already knew the truth. The public never saw those images. The world moved on. News networks spoke of weather patterns and diplomatic visits. But in military corridors, one sentence appeared again and again in briefing slides: engagement confirmed. Venezuelan fleet operating with advanced foreign support. No one said Russia aloud. They didn't have to. In the following days, ships moved quietly. Venezuelan patrols retreated behind territorial waters. The Nimitz group held position near the Philippine basin, running silent drills masked as recovery efforts. Every system was tested, recalibrated, and rewritten. Even the algorithms that managed engagement priorities were updated overnight. A quiet war fought not with gunpowder, but with code. By October 29th, the ocean had forgotten. Salt erased oil. Debris sank to a depth where pressure becomes a form of forgiveness. Yet among those who watched the screens that week, memory refused to fade. They spoke in low voices about the new kind of warfare, one that lived between deniability and destruction. A war fought in silence, under flags that never flutter, between signatures that never admit their names. The final report closed with a single line, one that would never reach the press, but would live in archives marked classified until 2085. The engagement demonstrated the fragility of peace in an age where every signal is a weapon, and every accident is a choice. And as the sun set over the Pacific, the Nimitz turned east, her wake slicing a perfect white path through black water. No victory music, no speeches, no headlines. Only the rhythm of turbines and the hum of unseen machines watching a world where the next shot might already have been fired, silently, invisibly, and long before anyone knew it had begun. Because in modern warfare, battles are not won by firepower or courage. They are won by control of the narrative, of the data, of the silence.